I stared at my reflection in the full-length mirror, the crystal-encrusted Valentino gown catching the light from 1,000 angles. Behind me, through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite, the Eiffel Tower glittered against the Paris sky. In 6 hours, I would walk down an aisle lined with white roses and peonies, toward a man who loved me with an intensity that still took my breath away, in front of 400 guests, including half the fashion industry's elite and several members of European royalty. My phone buzzed, another message from my mother. "Eleanor, please, your sister is devastated. Can't you find it in your heart to invite her? She's family." I deleted it without responding, just as I deleted the 47 messages before it. Just as I deleted my father's emails, my sister Charlotte's tear-stained video messages, and my aunt's guilt-tripping voicemails. The phone buzzed again. A text from my publicist. "Vogue's photographer just arrived. They want to start the pre-ceremony shots in 20 minutes. You ready to make history?" I smiled at my reflection, at the woman I'd become in this second life. 28 years old, creative director of my own fashion house, engaged to Alexandra Moreau, heir to the Moreau luxury empire, and about to have my wedding featured as Vogue Paris's cover story. The same magazine my mother used to leave on the coffee table, open to pages featuring other people's perfect daughters, other people's successful children. "More than ready," I typed back. But I wasn't always this woman. That knowledge sat in my chest like a stone, cold and heavy and utterly certain. Because 7 years ago, I died. And 3 days later, I woke up in my 21-year-old body, in my childhood bedroom, with every terrible memory of my first life intact. The memory of my first wedding, if you could even call it that, flickered through my mind like a cruel film reel. I pushed it away. Not today. Today was about the new life I'd built, the revenge I'd carefully orchestrated, the justice I'd finally claimed. Today they would see exactly what they'd thrown away. In my first life, I married Daniel on a rainy Tuesday in March, in a courthouse ceremony that lasted 11 minutes. I wore a cream dress from Target that cost $48. My bouquet was a cluster of daisies from the grocery store. The only guests were Daniel's parents and his sister. My family didn't come. "Charlotte has a callback audition," my mother had said when I called to remind her. "You understand, don't you, Eleanor? This could be her big break. She's been trying to get into the Pacific Theater Company for months. Surely you can reschedule." "It's my wedding, Mom." "Yes, and you'll have many more anniversaries to celebrate. But Charlotte only gets one chance at this audition. Be reasonable." I was always being told to be reasonable. My father didn't even offer an excuse. He just said, "Your mother and I need to support your sister," and hung up. Charlotte sent a text. "Sorry, sis. You know how it is. This audition could change everything for me. We'll celebrate when I get back. Love you." She didn't love me. I knew that even then. But I'd spent 28 years making excuses for her, for them, for the way they'd slowly extracted every piece of my self-worth and fed it to my sister's insatiable ego. I grew up in Charlotte's shadow. She was 3 years younger than me, and from the moment she could walk, she was the sun around which our family orbited. She was beautiful, genuinely beautiful, with glossy dark hair and wide blue eyes and a smile that could sell anything. She was charming. She was talented, at least in the way our parents defined talent. She could sing. She could act. She could work a room. I was none of those things. I was quiet. I was awkward. I was the daughter who liked to draw in her room, who spent hours sketching dresses and imagining fabrics, who dreamed in colors and textures instead of spotlights and applause. "Eleanor's such an odd little thing," my mother used to say to her friends, as if I wasn't standing right there. "Nothing like Charlotte. Charlotte's going to be a star." And they fed that star. My college fund became Charlotte's acting classes. My birthday parties were canceled because Charlotte had auditions. My high school graduation was a hurried affair because Charlotte's showcase was the same night, and, of course, we had to attend that instead. "You're just getting a diploma, Eleanor," my father said. "Everyone gets a diploma. But Charlotte's performing the lead role. That's special." I learned not to ask for things. I learned not to expect things. I learned that my role in the family was to be invisible, to take up no space, to require nothing. So when I met Daniel in my senior year of college, when he looked at me like I mattered, like I was worth something, I fell completely and blindly in love. He was kind, he was stable, he worked in insurance and wore sensible shoes and talked about wanting a simple life with a simple family. He wasn't ambitious, but neither was I, or so I told myself. My dreams of fashion design had been thoroughly buried by then, crushed under years of being told that art wasn't a real career, that I needed to be practical, that I should get a teaching degree just to have something to fall back on. I became an elementary school art teacher. I was good at it. The children loved me. But every night, I went home to the sketchbooks I kept hidden in my closet, to the designs I drew in secret, to the dreams I couldn't quite kill. Daniel proposed after 2 years of dating. It was practical, sensible, and exactly what I thought I deserved. His family welcomed me. They threw me a small bridal shower. They helped me plan the courthouse ceremony because Daniel and I couldn't afford anything else. I was paying off student loans and he was saving for a down payment on a house. I called my family to tell them the date. "A Tuesday," my mother said. "Eleanor, that's so inconvenient. Can't you do a Saturday?" It's the only day the courthouse had available for the next 3 months, and we've already arranged time off work. Well, I suppose we'll make it work. But they didn't make it work. The morning of my wedding, my mother called. Charlotte's audition. My father called. He needed to support my sister. Charlotte texted her breezy apology. I cried in the courthouse bathroom for 20 minutes. Then I fixed my makeup, walked out, and married Daniel while his family watched and my family sent their love via text message. The marriage was fine. Not happy, but fine. Daniel was kind, but distant. We settled into a routine: work, dinner, television, sleep. I taught during the day and sketched at night. He never asked about my drawings. I never showed them to him. 3 years into our marriage, Charlotte's career finally took off. She landed a role in a Broadway show, not a lead, but a featured part with her name in the program. My parents called me ecstatic. "Isn't it wonderful?" my mother gushed. "Charlotte's finally made it. We're flying to New York for opening night. You should come." "I can't afford a last-minute flight to New York, Mom." "Oh, Eleanor, don't be difficult. This is Charlotte's moment." I didn't go. I sent a card and flowers. Charlotte posted photos of opening night on social media. Her in a stunning gown. My parents beaming on either side of her, all of them radiant with joy. The caption read, "With my biggest supporters, couldn't have done this without you." I wasn't in any of the photos. I wasn't mentioned in any of the posts. 2 months later, Charlotte's show closed. It wasn't a hit. She was devastated. My mother called to ask if Charlotte could stay with Daniel and me for a few weeks while she regrouped and figured out her next steps. Those few weeks became 6 months. Charlotte took over our guest room, our living room, our lives. She was dramatic and loud and constantly on the phone with her agent, her acting coach, her friends. She borrowed my clothes without asking. She ate our food. She ran up our utilities with her marathon showers and her insistence on keeping the heat at 75 degrees. Daniel never complained, but I saw the way his jaw tightened when Charlotte's laughter echoed through the house at midnight, when her friends came over for impromptu parties, when she used all the hot water before he could shower in the morning. I asked her gently if she had a timeline for finding her own place. "Are you seriously kicking me out?" She stared at me with wounded eyes. "I'm your sister, Eleanor. I'm going through a crisis. I can't believe how selfish you're being." She called our mother, crying. My mother called me, furious. "How dare you? Charlotte needs family support right now and you're turning your back on her? After everything we've done for you." "Everything you've done for me?" I asked quietly. "Like what, Mom? Like skipping my wedding? Like forgetting my birthday for the past 5 years? Like never once asking about my life?" "Don't you dare take that tone with me. Charlotte is suffering and you're being petty and vindictive. Let her stay until she's back on her feet." Charlotte stayed for another 8 months. When she finally moved out, it was because she'd landed a small role in a film shooting in Los Angeles. My parents helped her with the security deposit and first month's rent on a Studio City apartment. They flew out to help her move. They never offered to help us with our mortgage when Daniel lost his job during the recession. They never asked if we needed anything. But that wasn't what killed me, in the end. What killed me was the dress. I'd been designing it for 3 years, sketching and resketching, imagining every seam in detail. It was a wedding dress, not for me, I was already married, but as a pure creative exercise. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever created. A gown with a fitted bodice, embroidered with delicate cherry blossoms, a flowing skirt that moved like water, sleeves that looked like they were made of butterfly wings. I'd even started sourcing materials, saving a little money each month from my teaching salary, buying silk and tulle and tiny crystal beads. I kept the design in a portfolio under our bed. Daniel didn't know about it. No one knew about it. Except Charlotte found it when she was staying with us. She must have been snooping through our room, looking for jewelry to borrow or clothes or money, and she found my portfolio. I came home from work one day to find her photographing the designs with her phone. "What are you doing?" She looked up, startled but not guilty. "These are amazing, Eleanor. Did you draw these?" Something in her tone made my skin prickle. "Give me my portfolio, Charlotte. You should do something with these. Send them to designers or something." "Give it back." She did, but the damage was done. I knew Charlotte well enough to know that look in her eyes. Calculation, opportunity, desire. 3 months after she moved to Los Angeles, she got engaged to Marcus Chen, a film producer 20 years her senior with family money and industry connections. She posted about it constantly. The ring, the proposal story, the wedding planning. I was happy for her, in the distant way I'd learned to be happy for Charlotte's successes. Then I saw her wedding dress in one of her Instagram posts. My wedding dress, my design. Every detail, every line, every impossible butterfly wing sleeve. She'd had it made by some expensive Los Angeles designer, claimed she'd worked with them to create her dream gown, posted endless photos of fittings and alterations. She'd stolen my design and made it hers. I called her. "Charlotte, that's my dress." "What?" "No, it's not. I designed this with Marianne Delacroix. She's Trey exclusive. You've probably never heard of her. I sketched that dress 3 years ago. You photographed it when you were staying with us. That's my design, Charlotte." "Oh my God, Eleanor, are you seriously trying to ruin my wedding?" "So, I was inspired by some doodles you did. That's not the same as stealing. You're being paranoid and jealous as usual." She hung up. When I called back, she'd blocked my number. I tried to call my mother. "Mom, Charlotte stole my wedding dress design, the one from my portfolio. She's claiming she designed it." "Eleanor, enough. Charlotte's dress is stunning, and she worked very hard with her designer to create it. Stop being bitter about your sister's happiness. It's ugly." "I'm not bitter. I'm telling you she literally—" "I won't listen to this. Charlotte's wedding is in 2 weeks, and I won't have you spreading lies and trying to ruin it. Get therapy for your jealousy issues." She hung up too. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the quiet of my small house. And something inside me broke. Not dramatically. Not with tears or screaming. Just a quiet, final breaking. Like a bone that's been cracked too many times finally splitting in two. Daniel came home and found me sitting on the floor, staring at nothing. "Elle, you okay?" "She stole my dress," I whispered. "What?" I couldn't explain. The words were too big, the hurt too old, the lifetime of being overlooked and dismissed and erased too heavy to articulate. The wedding was spectacular, if Charlotte's social media was to be believed. 300 guests at a Malibu estate. My dress, her dress, featured in every photo, called a breathtaking custom creation by the Society columnist who covered it. Marcus's family connections meant minor celebrities attended. Charlotte glowed in photos, my design draped perfectly over her body, my butterfly sleeves catching the California sunset. My parents posted pictures with captions about our beautiful daughter's perfect day. I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't there. I hadn't been invited. "Family only," my mother had said when I'd asked foolishly if I would get an invitation. "It's going to be a small, intimate ceremony." 300 people was small and intimate, just not small enough to include me. Something happened to me after that. I stopped sketching. I stopped dreaming. I moved through my life like a ghost, teaching my classes and going home and existing in the quiet space Daniel and I shared, where we barely spoke anymore, where we'd become strangers who shared a mortgage. 2 years later, I was driving home from school when a truck ran a red light. I remember the impact, the sound of crushing metal, the strange, detached thought. So this is how it ends. I remember Daniel crying at the hospital. I remember my mother's voice. "We're coming, Eleanor, we're coming, hold on." But Charlotte had a showcase. An important director was going to be there. They'd come after, they promised. I died before they arrived, and 3 days later, I woke up in my childhood bedroom, 21 years old again, with 7 years of memories from a life I'd already lived. The first thing I did was vomit. The second thing I did was cry. The third thing I did was laugh, because what else could I do? I'd been given the rarest gift in the world, a second chance. I looked around my childhood bedroom with new eyes. The same floral wallpaper, the same desk where I'd spent hours drawing, the same closet where I'd hidden my sketchbooks from my family's dismissive comments. On my desk was an acceptance letter from Parsons School of Design in New York. I'd gotten in on scholarship, but I'd never gone. I'd let my parents convince me it was impractical, that I should stay local, that I should get a teaching degree instead. Not this time. I picked up my phone. The date was August 15th, 3 weeks before I was supposed to start at the local state university. In my first life, I'd called Parsons that afternoon to decline their acceptance. I didn't make that call. Instead, I called Parsons and confirmed my enrollment. Then I started packing. My mother knocked on my door that evening. "Eleanor, dinner's ready. Charlotte made her famous pasta." In my first life, I'd gone downstairs. I'd eaten the pasta and complimented Charlotte and listened to her talk about her audition for a local theater production. I'd been the good sister, the quiet sister, the sister who took up no space. "I'm not hungry," I called back. Silence. Then, "Are you feeling okay?" "I'm fine. I'm just busy packing for New York." I heard her footsteps retreat, heard urgent whispering downstairs, heard my father's heavier footsteps coming up. He opened my door without knocking. "Your mother says you're talking about New York?" "I'm going to Parsons. I deferred my enrollment at state." His face flushed. "Like hell you are. We've already paid your housing deposit. Do you have any idea how much money we'd lose?" In my first life, I'd caved under his anger. I'd apologized. I'd unpacked. Not this time. "You paid a $200 deposit that's non-refundable either way," I said calmly. "I'm going to Parsons. I've already confirmed." "And how exactly do you plan to pay for New York? Do you have any idea how expensive?" "I got a full scholarship. It covers tuition and housing. I've saved $5,000 from my summer job. It's enough to get started." "This is ridiculous. You're throwing away a practical education for some fantasy." "No," I said, and my voice was steel. "I'm not." I'd spent 7 years being quiet, being practical, being reasonable, and I died with nothing but regrets. Never again. Parsons was everything I'd dreamed and more. I threw myself into my studies with a ferocity that surprised my professors. I already knew what I was capable of. I'd spent years sketching in secret, developing my eye, understanding construction and drape. Now I had the technical training to match my vision. I also knew exactly which professors to impress, which connections to make, which opportunities to seize. In my first life, I'd heard about these things secondhand, through Charlotte's stories about making it in entertainment. The strategy was the same in fashion. Talent was important, but connections were everything. I made connections. I befriended Sophia Laurent in my second-year draping class. She was brilliant and driven, and her father ran a textile import business. In my first life, she'd gone on to start her own sustainable fabric line. I knew that, so I cultivated the friendship carefully, genuinely. When she mentioned wanting to experiment with eco-friendly silks, I offered to help her source suppliers. When her first samples came in, I designed a collection around them. My professor saw the pieces. "Eleanor, these are extraordinary. Would you be interested in showing them at the senior showcase?" "I'm only a second year." I'm also aware that you're one of the most talented students I've seen in 15 years of teaching. Say yes." I said yes. The showcase led to an internship with Derek Chen, no relation to my sister's future husband, Marcus, thank God, a rising star in the New York fashion scene. Derek was brilliant, demanding, and exactly the mentor I needed. I worked 100-hour weeks, learned everything about running a fashion house, absorbed every lesson. I also learned that Derek was planning to retire in 5 years. He'd mentioned it once, casually, over late-night work on a collection. "I'm tired," he'd said. "I've been doing this for 30 years. I want to travel, spend time with my husband, sleep past 6 a.m. for once in my life." I filed that information away, and when my family called, I was pleasant but distant. My mother complained that I never came home for breaks. "Charlotte misses you," she said, which was a lie. Charlotte barely knew I existed. "I'm busy with school, Mom." "You're choosing fashion over family?" "I'm choosing my future." I sent gifts for birthdays and holidays. I sent polite text messages. I maintained just enough contact that they couldn't accuse me of abandonment, but not enough to give them any foothold in my new life. In my third year, I met Alexandra, and it was at a gallery opening in Chelsea. I was there with Sophia. Her fabric line was starting to gain attention, and we were celebrating her first major order. Alexandra was there with his mother, Isabel Moreau, who was in New York looking at potential acquisitions for the family's luxury brand. I recognized him immediately, even though we'd never met in my first life. The Moreau family was fashion royalty, and Alexander was constantly in the society pages with whatever model or actress he was dating that month. He was devastatingly handsome, wealthy beyond imagination, and had a reputation as a playboy. He was also, I knew from industry gossip I'd picked up over the years, desperately lonely. His father had died when he was 15. His mother had thrown herself into work, building the Moreau empire bigger and stronger, but leaving Alexander emotionally adrift. He dated beautiful women who wanted his money and his name, but never him. He was being groomed to take over the company, but he had no real passion for the work. I wasn't interested in him romantically. Not then. I had too much work to do, too many plans to execute. But fate had other plans. I was standing in front of a painting, a stunning abstract piece all in blues and silvers, when someone stepped up beside me. "It's called memory," a man's voice said. "The artist says it's about trying to hold on to something that's already slipping away." I turned. Alexandra Moreau smiled at me, and my heart did something inconvenient and entirely unexpected in my chest. "Eleanor Thorne," I said, offering my hand. "And I think it's about something that's already gone, but still shapes everything that comes after." His smile widened. "That's much better. Are you an artist?" "A designer, fashion." "Ah, let me guess, Parsons?" "How did you know?" "You have that look. Brilliant, exhausted, and probably surviving on coffee and ambition." I laughed, surprised. "Guilty as charged." We talked for an hour, then 2. When Sophia came to find me, Alexandra asked for my number. I gave it to him, even though I told myself it was just networking, just making connections, just part of the plan. He called the next day, and the day after that. 3 months later, we were dating, and 6 months later, I was in love with him, which absolutely wasn't part of any plan. "Tell me something true," he said one night, lying in his ridiculously luxurious apartment overlooking Central Park. "Something you've never told anyone." I could have said a million things. I could have told him I'd died and been reborn. I could have told him about my family, about being invisible, about watching my sister steal my dreams. Instead, I said, "I'm going to have my own fashion house someday, and it's going to change everything." He kissed me. "I believe you." That was when I knew I'd marry him. Not for his money or his connections or his name, but because he believed me when no one else ever had. I graduated top of my class. Derek Chen offered me a position as his associate designer, with the implicit understanding that I was being groomed to take over when he retired. I said yes. I also started designing my own collection in secret. Small pieces at first, things I could produce on a tight budget. Sophia gave me incredible deals on fabric. Alexander helped me navigate the business side, contracts, licensing, trademark. His mother, whom I'd won over through sheer determination and talent, introduced me to manufacturers and suppliers. Again, 2 years after graduation, Derek announced his retirement. He sold me his company, not for nothing, but for a price I could actually afford. With Alexandra's backing and a business loan, I spent 3 months negotiating. "Don't fuck it up," Derek said on his last day, hugging me tight. "Make me proud." I renamed the company Eleanor, just my first name, all capitals, like a declaration. My first collection was called Invisible. Every piece was designed to make the wearer feel seen. Bold colors, dramatic silhouettes, garments that demanded attention. It was everything I'd been in my first life, transformed into everything I refused to be in this one. The collection sold out in 3 days. Vogue called it a stunning debut from a designer to watch. Ella said I was redefining modern femininity with a bold, unapologetic vision. My mother called me for the first time in 8 months. "Eleanor, we saw you in a magazine. We're so proud." I didn't answer. Charlotte sent a DM on Instagram. "OMG sis, you're famous. We should collab on something." I blocked her. My second collection was bigger, better, more ambitious. My third collection showed at New York Fashion Week. By my fourth collection, I had a waiting list of clients that included actresses, musicians, and several women from Forbes' most powerful list. And through it all, Alexander was beside me. Not in front of me, not behind me, but beside me. He celebrated my successes as if they were his own. He held me when the stress felt crushing. He asked questions and listened to answers and treated my work as if it mattered because to him, it did. When he proposed, at the Louvre in front of the winged Victory with a ring that had been his grandmother's, I said yes before he finished asking. We set the wedding date for 18 months out, a Sunday in June, at his family's chateau outside Paris, with a reception at the Musée Rodin. Vogue Paris requested exclusive coverage. I said yes, and I didn't invite my family. The call started 6 months before the wedding. First, my mother. "Eleanor, I assume we'll get a save the date soon?" Charlotte's asking, and I don't know what to tell her. "You won't be receiving one, Mom." Silence, then, "I don't understand. You're not invited. None of you are invited." "Eleanor, this is a joke, right? We're your family." "You skipped my first wedding. You made it clear family isn't important when it comes to me." "That was different. You were just going to a courthouse. This is a real wedding." I hung up. My father called next. "Your mother is hysterical. What's this nonsense about us not being invited to your wedding?" "It's not nonsense. It's a decision." "This is about Charlotte, isn't it? You've always been jealous of your sister." "Dad, I need to go. I have a fitting." "Eleanor Marie Thorne, you listen to me." I hung up. Charlotte sent a video message, tears streaming down her face. "Ellie, please, I don't understand what I did wrong. You're my sister. I love you. How can you get married without me there? Mom says you're punishing us for something, but I don't even know what. Please talk to me. Please." I watched the video once, then I deleted it. The truth was, I wasn't punishing them. Punishment implied I cared enough about their suffering to cause it deliberately. I didn't. I simply didn't want them there. I didn't want their jealousy, their drama, their ability to make everything about them. I didn't want to look across the aisle and see my mother, crying performative tears while mentally calculating how to make this moment about Charlotte. I didn't want my father walking me down an aisle when he'd never shown up for me when it mattered. I wanted a day that was purely, perfectly, entirely mine. The messages escalated. My mother created a fake email address to get through my blocked list. My father showed up at my office in New York. Security escorted him out. Charlotte posted on social media about family betrayal and wedding exclusion, in vague terms that her followers immediately understood was about me. My aunt, whom I barely knew, wrote me a letter about forgiveness and Christian values. I ignored all of it. 2 months before the wedding, my mother played her final card. She called Alexandra. I found out because he told me immediately. "Your mother phoned my office," he said carefully. "She said you were having some kind of breakdown and weren't thinking clearly about the wedding. She wanted me to convince you to be reasonable." "What did you say?" "I told her that you're the most clear-thinking person I've ever met, that our wedding is exactly what you want it to be, and that she should respect your decisions. Then I told her if she contacted me again, I'd involve lawyers." I kissed him. "Have I mentioned that I love you?" "Not in the last hour. Completely unacceptable." The final message came from Charlotte 3 weeks before the wedding. No tears this time, just anger. "You know what, Eleanor? Fine. Don't invite us. But don't come crying to us when your marriage falls apart and you realize you've alienated everyone who actually cares about you. You're selfish and cruel, and you'll end up alone, you'll see." I did see. I saw exactly what I wanted to see. My wedding day was perfect. The sky was cloudless blue. The chateau's gardens were in full bloom. The 400 guests, designers, models, business moguls, artists, Alexandra's enormous extended family, my real friends, filled the chairs arranged under the ancient oak trees. I wore a dress of my own design, ivory silk with hand-embroidered gold vines climbing from hem to bodice, off-shoulder sleeves that fluttered like wings. Not butterfly wings, phoenix wings. Rising from ashes, reborn. My something old was a sketchbook, the one I'd kept hidden in my first life, now carried by a flower girl as a tribute to dreams delayed but never destroyed. Sophia was my maid of honor. Derek walked me down the aisle because he'd believed in me when no one else did. Alexandra cried when he saw me, so did I. The ceremony was in French and English. We wrote our own vows. His were beautiful and romantic and made all the women sob. Mine were a promise to be seen, to be valued, to be chosen, every single day. I do, we said, and I did. I chose happiness. I chose love. I chose a man who chose me back. The reception was legendary. Vogue's photographer captured everything. The 7-tier cake covered in edible gold, the first dance under fairy lights, the speeches that were funny and touching and perfect. The magazine's editor, Marie-Claire Beaumont, whom I'd courted carefully for 2 years, told me it would be their December cover. "The wedding of the year," she said, "possibly the decade. Eleanor, you've created something magical here." I hadn't just created a wedding, I'd created a statement. I'd created proof. Near midnight, drunk on champagne and happiness, I stood with Alexandre on the chateau's terrace, looking out over the gardens where our guests danced and laughed and celebrated. "Happy?" he asked, deliriously. "Any regrets?" I thought about the question. Did I regret not inviting my family? Did I regret the estrangement, the burned bridges, the finality of it all? "No," I said, "not even one." He kissed my temple. "Good. Because I plan to make you this happy every single day for the rest of our lives." He was doing an excellent job so far. The magazine came out in December, just as promised. Vogue Paris, December issue. Cover, me in my wedding dress, Alexandre behind me with his arms around my waist, both of us laughing at something the photographer had said. The headline, L'amour triomphant, Eleanor Thorne's fairy tale wedding. Inside was a 20-page spread. Professional photos of every detail, the dress, the venue, the flowers, the cake, the guests. Photos of Alexandra looking at me like I hung the moon. Photos of me looking genuinely, radiantly happy. There was an interview, too. The journalist asked about my journey from unknown Parsons graduate to owner of one of New York's hottest fashion houses to wife of Alexander Moreau. I told her a carefully edited version of the truth. Small-town girl, overlooked by her family, found her voice through design. Worked hard, got lucky, fell in love. "Your family wasn't at the wedding," the journalist noted. "Is there a rift?" "I've built my own family," I said. Through friends who became sisters, mentors who became parents, a husband who became my home. Blood doesn't obligate anyone to anything. Love is a choice, and I choose to surround myself with people who choose me back. The quote was pulled out and printed in large font across a photo of me and Sophia toasting with champagne. The magazine hit newsstands on a Wednesday. By Thursday, my phone was exploding. My mother called 17 times. My father called 9. Charlotte called me, called Alexandra, called my publicist, called Vogue to complain about the article. My aunt sent another letter. My extended family, most of whom I barely knew, came out of the woodwork to offer opinions on my betrayal of family values. I didn't answer any of them, but I did hear through mutual acquaintances what happened when my family got their copies of the magazine. My mother apparently saw it at her salon, where they keep all the fashion magazines. She picked it up, saw my face on the cover, and started screaming. The salon owner said she went through the entire spread sobbing, then bought every copy in the shop and took them home. My father, according to my former neighbor who still talked to him, locked himself in his office for 2 hours after seeing the magazine at a bookstore. He came out red-eyed and wouldn't discuss it. Charlotte posted a photo on Instagram of the magazine with the caption, "When you find out your sister got married and didn't invite you from a magazine spread. Family is forever, but apparently some people forget that." The comments section tore her apart. Maybe she had her reasons? Girl, if you're not in those wedding photos, that's on you, not her. Imagine being so self-centered you make someone else's wedding about yourself. That quote about choosing people who choose you back. Sis, I think she's telling you something. Charlotte deleted the post within an hour, but the real fallout came later when I learned the full scope of what my exclusion from their lives had cost them. My mother, it turned out, had been dining out on my daughter, the fashion designer, for months. She'd told everyone in her social circle about my success, claiming she'd always supported my dreams, always known I'd make it. She'd shown everyone pictures of me from magazines, talking about my Eleanor, as if we spoke every day. When the wedding spread came out and people asked why she hadn't been there, she couldn't explain. The story fell apart. Her friends realized she'd been lying, exaggerating, claiming credit for a daughter she'd neglected and dismissed. The social circle that meant everything to her turned cold. My father's business connections had been impressed by his daughter married to a Moreau. He'd used my name, my marriage, to make deals, to open doors, to elevate his status. When those same connections saw the magazine interview, saw my quote about building my own family, they understood the truth. The doors closed, the deals fell through. Charlotte's acting career had been stagnant for years, but recently she'd been using her connection to me, my sister, the famous designer, to get meetings, to get auditions, to get attention. She'd post pictures of us from 15 years ago, claiming we were close, implying I might design for her or introduce her to my celebrity clients. When the magazine came out, when everyone saw that I hadn't invited her to my wedding, her claims of closeness were exposed as lies. Casting directors stopped returning her calls. The few roles she'd been considered for went to other actresses. She'd built her recent career on a foundation of my name, and I'd pulled that foundation out from under her. I learned all of this through the grapevine, through industry gossip, through the strange way information travels in overlapping social and professional circles. I felt nothing. No, that's not true. I felt vindicated. 6 months after the wedding, Alexander and I moved to Paris permanently. His mother was stepping back from the company, and he was taking over as CEO. I was opening Eleanor's first international flagship store on Avenue Montaigne, one of the most prestigious fashion streets in the world. We bought a penthouse apartment in the 7th arrondissement with views of the Eiffel Tower. We hosted dinner parties for designers and artists and the kind of interesting people who made life feel rich and full. We traveled: Milan, London, Tokyo, Hong Kong. We built a life that was extraordinary and also perfectly ordinary. Morning coffee on the balcony, late nights working on designs, lazy Sundays in bed reading the paper. My company grew. Eleanor became the brand for women who wanted to be seen, who wanted to take up space, who refused to be invisible. I hired a team of talented designers, paid them well, created a work environment where creativity thrived. My collections sold out season after season. My client list included 3 first ladies, 2 duchesses, and 4 Oscar winners. I was featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. I was invited to speak at Parsons, at FIT, at design schools around the world. Young designers sent me their portfolios, told me I was their inspiration, told me I made them believe they could make it too. I'd become exactly what I'd planned to become. More, actually. I'd exceeded every goal, surpassed every dream. And through it all, my family kept trying. Birthday cards arrived that I didn't open. Christmas presents were delivered that I donated to charity. My mother hired a private investigator to find my Paris address, then showed up at my building. Security didn't let her up. Charlotte wrote me a letter, an actual handwritten letter, claiming she'd done a lot of therapy and understood now how she'd hurt me and wanted to rebuild our sisterly bond. I burned it, not dramatically, not as a statement. I just lit it with a match and watched it curl and blacken in the sink, then washed the ashes down the drain. The thing about second chances is that you don't owe them to anyone. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. Reconciliation isn't required. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away and never look back. I was done looking back. 2 years after the wedding, I got pregnant. Alexandra cried with joy. I cried with terror. Becoming a mother felt like the ultimate test of everything I'd overcome. Could I be better than what I'd experienced? Could I create something whole and healthy from the broken pieces of my past? My daughter was born on a rainy April morning. We named her Marguerite, after Alexandra's grandmother. She was perfect, tiny and red-faced, and screaming with all the fury of someone who'd just been evicted from the world's most comfortable home. I held her and felt something shift in my chest, some final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. This was what I'd been fighting for. Not revenge, though that was satisfying. Not success, though that was sweet. But the chance to create a life, a family, a legacy built on love instead of neglect. To raise a daughter who would never doubt she was wanted, valued, chosen. "Hello, little phoenix," I whispered to her. "Welcome to the world." My mother found out about the birth through Facebook. One of Alexandra's cousins had posted congratulations. She sent a gift, a silver rattle engraved with, "To our granddaughter." I sent it back with a note, "We don't accept gifts from strangers." Charlotte posted a vague Instagram story. "When you become an aunt, but your sister won't let you meet your niece." #family drama, #heartbroken. Her followers were less sympathetic than she'd hoped. Maybe there's a reason. Girl, you can't force yourself into people's lives. Some bridges are burned for good reason. She deleted that post too. But my father's response was different. He didn't call or write or show up unannounced. Instead, he sent a letter to my lawyer, an actual legal document. It was a request for grandparent visitation rights, claiming that I was illegally keeping him from his grandchild, that Marguerite had the right to know her grandparents, that I was being cruel and vindictive. The letter made me laugh. Then it made me furious. My lawyer, the same one who'd helped me with my company and corporation, who was also one of the most feared family law attorneys in Paris, sent back a response that essentially boiled down to, "Try it and find out." France's laws don't favor grandparents who have no existing relationship with the child. My father had no case. He'd never met Marguerite. He'd missed his chance at a relationship with me. He certainly wasn't entitled to one with my daughter. The legal threat fizzled out. But it did make me realize something. They weren't going to stop. Not ever. As long as they thought there was a possibility of access to my life, my success, my name, they would keep trying. So I made a final decision, and I hired a publicist to release a statement. Short, clear, unapologetic. Eleanor Thorne Moreau has no relationship with her birth family. Any claims of connection or attempted contact are unauthorized and unwanted. This statement is being made to prevent continued harassment and to establish clear boundaries. There will be no further comment on this matter. The statement was picked up by fashion news outlets. It was brief news cycle. Designer cuts ties with family. And then it was over, but it worked. The messages stopped, the letters ceased, the social media posts ended. They'd finally gotten the message. I was done. Marguerite grew. She learned to walk, to talk, to draw with the same fierce concentration I'd had as a child. Alexandra and I had another daughter 2 years later, Sylvie, who was all chaos and laughter where her sister was thoughtful and careful. I taught them both to see beauty in unexpected places. Alexandra taught them to be kind, but not doormats. Generous, but not foolish. Together, we taught them that family is what you make it, not what you're born into. When Marguerite was 5, she asked me, "Mama, why don't we have grandmas and grandpas like Sophie?" Sophie was her school friend whose grandmother picked her up every Wednesday. I could have lied. I could have said they lived far away or they died or any number of comfortable fictions. Instead, I knelt down to her level. "Some people aren't good at being family," I said carefully. "And when that happens, we get to choose our own family instead. That's why we have Uncle Derek and Aunt Sophia and all the people who love us and show up for us. Family is about love, not blood." "But they're your mama and papa." They were, but they weren't very good at it. So I found new people to be my family instead. She considered this with the seriousness only a 5-year-old can muster. "Okay, can we have ice cream now?" "Absolutely." It was that simple. Children understand, in their uncomplicated way, that sometimes people don't deserve access to your life. They understand boundaries and choices, and the difference between obligation and love. I never lied to my daughters about my past. As they got older, I told them age-appropriate versions of the truth. That I'd had a family who didn't value me, that I'd built a new life and a new family. that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who hurt you. They understood. 10 years after my rebirth, 15 years after my real wedding, I sat in my Paris office overlooking the Trocadero and thought about the two lives I'd lived. In my first life, I died at 35, invisible and overlooked, with nothing but regrets. In this life, I was 38, internationally known, deeply loved, profoundly happy. My company was worth $200 million. My marriage was stronger every year. My daughters were thriving. My chosen family surrounded me with love and support and joy. And my birth family? I'd heard through the grapevine that they'd continued to decline. My mother's social standing never recovered. She'd become a cautionary tale in her circles, the woman who'd lost her successful daughter through her own neglect. She'd tried to start a blog about healing family rifts, but no one read it. Last I heard, she'd moved to a smaller house in a cheaper neighborhood, my father having taken early retirement after his business declined. My father apparently had become bitter and reclusive. The daughter he'd dismissed as impractical had become wildly successful while he'd failed. That knowledge aided him. He'd tried to give interviews about me, my daughter Eleanor Thorne Moreau, the designer. But no journalist would touch the story after my publicist made it clear I'd sue for unauthorized use of my name. Charlotte's acting career had completely stalled. She had moved back home with our parents in her late 30s, still chasing auditions that never panned out, still posting on social media about her journey to a dwindling audience of followers who'd long since stopped engaging. She'd tried to leverage my name one last time, telling a podcast that I was her estranged sister and that my success had changed me. But the backlash was swift and brutal. The internet, for all its flaws, has no patience for people who play victim when they're clearly the villain. I learned all of this through the occasional Google search, through industry gossip, through the strange way information still filtered to me despite the walls I'd built. And I felt nothing, not vindicated anymore, not angry, not hurt, just nothing. They'd become strangers. People who'd once had the privilege of my love and presence, and who'd squandered it so completely that now they were just names, just vague memories of a life I'd left behind. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I wondered if they understood, if they'd figured out what they'd lost, if they'd ever truly grasped that their neglect, their dismissal, their constant choosing of Charlotte over me had cost them everything. But mostly, I didn't think about them at all. My second life taught me lessons my first life never could. That family is earned, not owed. That forgiveness is optional. That walking away from toxicity isn't cruel, it's survival. That success is the best revenge, but happiness is even better. That you don't owe anyone access to your joy, especially people who tried to steal it in the first place. That being chosen, truly chosen, by people who see you and value you and celebrate you is worth more than any blood connection. That you can die and be reborn, literally or metaphorically, and come back stronger. That some bridges should be burned and you should roast marshmallows over the flames. On a Wednesday afternoon, 3 weeks after my 38th birthday, my assistant buzzed my office. "Madame Moreau, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your sister." I felt a flicker of something, not anger, just annoyance. And then it passed. "Tell her I'm not available. Tell security that Charlotte Thorne is not to be allowed in the building. Add her to the permanent no access list." "Of course, madam." I went back to my sketches. A new collection, this one called Liberation. Bold colors, architectural lines, garments that felt like armor and freedom all at once. Through my office window, I could see the Eiffel Tower sparkling in the afternoon sun. Could hear my daughters laughing in the next room, where Alexandra had brought them for lunch. Could smell the coffee my assistant had just brought in, perfect and rich and exactly how I liked it. This was my life. These were my people. This was the world I'd built, brick by brick, choice by choice, boundary by boundary. And it was perfect. They'd skipped my first wedding, dismissed my dreams, stolen my designs, and overlooked my entire existence. But I'd been reborn, and I'd risen from those ashes like a phoenix in a hand-embroidered dress. And I'd built an empire they couldn't touch, a family they couldn't penetrate, a happiness they couldn't diminish. They saw the magazine photos and cried. I saw my reflection and smiled, and that was all the revenge I'd ever need.